there's 2 points I want to address. One is an obvious fact, and the other one is less obvious, but it's very important for the healing process that I see, and that is there's been marches and demonstrations going on in my lifetime for the last 20 years consistently. In my hometown in Brunswick, New Jersey, 20 years ago, Sean Potts shot and killed by a police officer. He said he mistaked. The police officer said he slipped and fell in the alleyway and the gun went off. Just a year and a half ago, same town in Brunswick, New Jersey, home of Rutgers University, Johnson & Johnson World Headquarters. Police officer encounter with a man in a dark alley. Somehow the gun goes off. Once again, no weapon. Barry DeLoach was the young man's name. So just me personally, my personal story, I've seen it consistently for 20 years. And this story goes from state to state. Of course, New York City, California. So the issue of violence by police officers on unarmed black men, it's an old story that has yet to be addressed. So when I look at the Ferguson situation, there's something that's different about their protest compared to the recent issues that we've had in New York City, New Jersey, California. There's been protests, but this protest has the whole world looking like, what is this? And what I see is a duplication of the protest that we saw 50 years ago in the 60s in Birmingham and all over the South. And it was the same response by police. Dogs, heavy police beating on the citizens. And when I look at Ferguson and I listen to the voices coming out of Ferguson on the news networks and on Twitter, their outcry is identical to the cries back in the 60s, in that they're crying for basic civil rights. And I have to pinch myself because it's 2014. They're crying for basic civil rights. And if you look at that situation in Ferguson, Missouri, you have a community of black people that are totally separate from white people. The only interaction they have with white people are white people in authority. They're living two separate but unequal communities. But the white people, the mayor, they run the city council, they run the election board, they run the police force, they run the town, but black people are the majority. Same cry, it's that duplication of the cry from the 60s, identical to today. Compared to, like in a local region of New Jersey, New York City, we have more of a cohesive blend with white people, Spanish people, Chinese people on a daily basis. So it's not that deep separation that if you sit and if you listen to the voices coming out of Ferguson, you can hear the separation. There's a difference between someone being uneducated, but then if you listen, you can hear of a people that are growing totally separate lives, and their perspective is so distant. So the two separations of being allowed to live in totally black communities that are supervised by white people has got to go. But the second issue that we must address is when I listen to the black intellectuals on MSNBC, on CNN, and all the cable networks talk about this situation, still trying to paint the narrative of the 99% through the eyes of the 1%. The Ferguson situation happened in 2014, thus that society was allowed to exist on the watch of black intellectuals. That happened on your watch. We can't pretend it didn't happen. That truly they don't really have the voice of those coming out of Ferguson. Until you walk a mile in another man's shoes. That's an old quote, but it's so true. Their pain is real.